appears that back in January of 2016, 3 people got together, and if I'm reading between the lines, they set up a partnership here to open a cannabis dispensary in Washington, and they signed a 5-year lease, and they had what we call a condition subsequent, that if you don't get your license, you can bounce out of this thing. Okay? But you got to notify the landlord, and it turns out that they didn't get their license, and one of these 3 knuckleheads forgot to notify the landlord, and so the landlord's position was, hey, you had a chance to cancel this lease, you didn't do it, you owe me 5 years worth of rent. And so the landlord sued him. And when they got sued, they had a meeting, and it turns out that one of these guys, a Mr. Flanagan, was the only one with enough money to finance a suit and to actually pay the damages. Okay, so they hired this attorney by the name of Mr. Herman. Maybe I shouldn't say Herman, Mr., because I've met some skanks out there that practice law, and I don't want to call them Mr. or anything. But it turns out that the attorney, he filed what we call a motion for summary judgment. Didn't work. He also went to mediation, and mediation didn't work. And it turns out that the plaintiff here, Mr. Flanagan, who was one of the original partners that fucked this whole thing up, he didn't show up for the mediation. If I'm reading between the lines also, this is a typical shit sandwich I get. All 3 of the partners hate each other, won't talk to each other, and they're all getting sued. So that's where I think the fun begins for attorneys, is that Mr. Herman, he filed a petition with the court to withdraw as the attorney of record. He wanted out of it. He started dealing with these knuckleheads. And all 3 of the partners signed off on the withdrawal. The court let him out, and the attorney was ordered to send a notice of trial to all 3 partners, which it looks like he did. And he sent the notice to Mr. Flanagan at his business, and Mr. Flanagan claims he never got it. But he didn't show up for trial, and the trial went forward, and he got banged for $115,000 and some change. So he immediately negotiated a settlement with the landlord for $47,000 and then promptly sued the attorney. Wow. Okay. Well, this is where things went bad for him, because in the law, when you claim that someone is negligent, you have to prove that not only they're negligent, but their negligence caused you damage. And this is where Mr. Flanagan, the original knucklehead partner, had a problem. Because the reason they got hit for $115,000 and then $47,000 is because one of these partners didn't exercise their notice option to get out of the lease. Okay, that was the problem. It also looks like the motion for summary judgment and the mediation were okay. They weren't legal malpractice. What they're claiming was malpractice is the attorney's failure to send this notice, which the other 2 partners got. Mr. Flanagan never bothered to call the partners, never bothered to get an attorney, never bothered to call the original attorney to ask him, when am I going to trial? He just didn't show up, and then sued the attorney. And the attorney filed his own motion for summary judgment, which got granted. And his argument was that if there's any malpractice on my part, it didn't cause these idiots damage. Not exercising their option to get out of that lease is what caused them damage. And so it ain't my problem. It's what we call a proximate cause issue. So the appellate court agreed with them. And they put some language into this that, it makes attorneys smile when we can kick your ass on this regard, because they said proximate cause has 2 elements, cause in fact and legal cause. Cause in fact refers to the but-for consequences of an act, physical connection between an act and an injury. It's normally a question for the jury. Legal cause is grounded in policy determinations as to how far the consequences of a defendant's acts could extend, and deciding whether a defendant's breach of duty is too removed or insubstantial to trigger liability as a matter of legal cause is evaluated. We evaluate mixed considerations of logic, common sense, justice, policy, and precedent. Where the facts are not in dispute, legal causation is for the court to decide as a matter of law. And these guys wanted a jury, and the court said, nah, They said, Mr. Flanagan, you're a sophisticated business guy. You had every opportunity to fix this problem. And if Mr. Herman was negligent in his legal representation, his negligence was way too remote from what happened here to hold him responsible. It's what we call the proximate cause liability problem that people have when they sue attorneys. Because typically when you go and see an attorney, you've already screwed something up. And trying to prove the attorney screwed it up further becomes a problem of causation. And so there's two cautionary tales here. First of all, if you're going to get into a business adventure, I recommend a asset protection company like an LLC or a C Corp, not a partnership, because now your personal assets are at stake. And if you're going to sue an attorney, make sure you've got a good attorney representing you, because we have all sorts of legal protections. If you hadn't figured it out, attorneys run the world as much as people hate us, but we're everywhere, and we tend to be in charge far too often for our own good. So I'm going to throw it back at you. What do you guys all think about this?
Wow.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, Dale, if these guys have not been speaking lately, I don't see them speaking anytime soon.
No.
This sounds like one hell of a pissing match.
This is such a typical shit sandwich that I get in my office, where one of the partners comes in and goes, we're having these problems. You go, well, did you talk to your partner? I can't stand that son of a bitch. Okay, so how'd you guys ever solve a problem here? And if we can get to them before, I've recommended some business psychologists. You guys need to sit down, take a time out, talk to somebody who can get you to have some level of communication, or you're never going to be able to run a business here. And it's so common that, you need to think about this stuff. It isn't like I met somebody in a bar, we're out in the back seat right now, and now we're going to have a kid and we can't get along. Well, it's kind of like that. Mm-hmm. Spend a little more time getting to know who you're stooping before you get into business with them.
Yes. Oh, man.
I mean, so many people, it's like they just jump right into a business opportunity because they have a mutually exciting idea. And it's kind of like a really great first date.
Or yeah.
And then it fizzles out. But in business, it's not so easy to break up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you figure out they snore at night, right? Like, I didn't know you snored so much. Well, you should have spent a little more time getting to know them.
Oh, yeah, the snoring ain't so bad to me. It's the farting in the sleep.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
There you go.
Farting under them covers, not everybody enjoys everybody else's brand.
You don't like Dutch ovens, huh?
No, I'm not a fan of Dutch ovens. I'm more of a fan of these solo ovens that Mandy's gonna be talking about in the second half. I'm just saying.
Oh boy. You have any thoughts on this, Grace?
I mean, it boils down to communication, man. You know what I'm saying? You have to be able to communicate effectively in relationships. You have to be able to communicate effectively in business relationships. They're no different, right? So we have to be able to sit down as a team and be able to drill down on stuff. Sometimes the chemistry's not there. We've seen it in sports all the time, right, Rico? Like, they get 5 players from all over the league that are all the best of the best. They come together, they can't win a game. So it's not about having the smartest or the brightest in the room all the time. Sometimes it's about the chemistry of the team and how they work together, how they can field problems when they come in, how they can brainstorm and come up with creative new ideas. And then how they disagree. Like, when you're building out these businesses, you're going to have a lot of disagreements with your partners. And not everybody has the vision the same way. If they did, we would have cookie cutter businesses all over the place. That's what makes them unique, right? Your own vision. So what happens when you have teams is it becomes everybody's vision. It's not just that one person's vision. You have to be able to compromise, talk about it, disagree, move forward. And sometimes you won't get the part that you want. That's part of being able to do this effectively. And what a lot of times you end up happening is what Mandy just alluded to. Somebody comes and says, hey, I got this great idea. Everybody just sees dollar signs. They all want to jump in bed together. And then they realize they're snoring and farting and whatever else that everybody was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, pissing in the closet.
Well,
and all that shit.
I have a lot of discussions with my clients after I meet with them, because I did study psychology. My father-in-law was a psychiatrist. I've had plenty of discussions about how crazy people are. And when you explain to people what a personality profile is, and most people in this industry are not real agreeable, Okay?
Yeah.
And too many of them are neurotic. Okay? So when you put people into a room that aren't agreeable, they have egos as big as the room, and they're kind of neurotic. The next thing you know is everybody wants to be in charge, and it won't work. It just will not work.
So
Somebody's got to be subservient, if you will, and somebody has to make the final decision. And that's where the egos just trip people up, just incredibly.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would even say, I'm going back to what Luke said. I'd say it's more about the chemistry than anything else. So unless you're running like a soul prop, and unless you're running a soul prop and you just got nothing but contractors underneath you, like it has to be a team driven effort. There's way too many things to worry about, especially in cannabis. Even if you're not plant touching, there's way too much shit to worry about. So much compliance issues, so much stuff. It's a federally illegal industry. So if you don't have the right team, you don't have the people willing to play their roles, get the fuck out. Like exit quick, because it's going to.
You're going to be investing in cannabis. I think it behooves you to meet all the people that are going to be in charge and do your own personality evaluation. Because it ain't hard to figure out. Some people are just crazy as fuck, and you should never, ever be in business with them.
Go ahead, Grace.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about
Really
this,
important
Grace?
too from the jump to identify exactly what your roles and responsibilities are going to be. And this is true in every relationship, not just business. Like talk about this in your romantic life. Like all of your personal friendships have different rules in them. It's important to like just talk about it and get the expectation out there on the table from the jump when you're going into business with somebody. I mean, it's the same as a marriage.
Grace
can be equally explosive.
Yeah. Hold on. Grace has something to say.
Right?
Hold on a second. Grace has something to say on this. Go ahead, Grace.
Sorry. Man, this was probably the hardest lesson I learned this year, was just partnerships and how they really are. I mean, all of you really summed it up in that it is a relationship, just like any other. And then I'm so sorry, the lawyer, the uncle at every event. I remember half of your thing, but I don't remember your name.
Oh, that's Dale. That's Dale Schaefer. Attorney Dale Schaefer from
so
Armada
Dale,
Law.
I wanted to ask you, in your experience, because when you talked about the different personality types, excuse me, that's how I actually identify my clients. Like I try to kind of first figure out what type of client they are, how they kind of think, and what motivates them. And then I hate to say it, but kind of coddle the ego and learn how to, work with that personality type. So as I heard this story, and as you said, you get so many of these types of cases with partnerships where people hate each other. How do you even combat that? Or are you at a point where you just choose not to work with those people at all? Because I can't imagine. Mr. Fleming did not sound like a great person to work with.
Maybe he had too much phlegm.
What we do in our office is we typically get them in litigation mode where shit has already gone south and people are being sued. And so now we have to figure out the personality. And when I sit down and shut the door with somebody, there's nobody else in the room, I don't give two shits whether they like what I have to say to them or not. It's that if we're going to try a case and I got to put your ass in a witness chair, you cannot run off on some tangent, get your head stuck up your ass and act stupid. So they get to know from me from the gate that I'm looking at your personality. I'm afraid to tell them, you are a disagreeable son of a bitch and you've got an anxiety disorder. Okay, you're not conscientious, so you don't give a shit about planning anything, and you are the problem. So I think we need to settle this case. Or, you know what, I think you got a winning case, and I think we can get you postured for trial. Let's go rock and roll. And there's all sorts of things in between. You don't always have a choice in who comes in because you got a case, they got money, you think it's something that you can handle for them. Now you got to deal with the crazies, not just them. Some of them have spouses or significant others that are crazier than them. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can tell you how many times I've sat down with somebody and they bring their girlfriend in and she's just racist as fuck. You can't get her to stop saying stupid shit. It's like, I see the problem you got. You need to cut this person loose from your life, and she ain't going to be on my witness list. That's for damn sure.
Oh, man. And
that's the best in it. They come in racist, and then you say something wild to her, then you're a chauvinist and you're sexist too.
I
Nobody
don't give a
wins.
shit. I get right in their face. Okay.
how your
I got
partner
a
speaks.
mixed race family. You start using that N word around me, we're gonna have some real problems because you're talking about my little grandchildren now, and I'm gonna fuck you up or I'm gonna fire you on the spot.